So many things happening, especially with the passing of Bill C-9 in Canada, and then all the things that are going on around here. But you got a lot of other things going on behind the scenes, right? Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are teachers of truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Bracha Dum. As you can tell by the title of the video, it's all about to go down in Babylon the Great. You know, 2nd Ezra 15. A lot of things about to happen, and there's a possibility of a false flag event. They always use the 4th of July to do it too. Hey man, they're scheming something. So let's just get into this.
All praises and glory goes to Almighty Power Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone and salutations unto the elect and continue to feed the sheep of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, in sincerity and truth, with His great gospel coming out of our Bible. And one thing we know that's coming through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, this knowledge and wisdom that we have gotten is this civil unrest coming to Babylon the Great, right? The greatest society that was created, right? Esau, Edom's last final kingdom, the greatest kingdom, which is here, America. Right, really, their military stronghold is about to collapse. Right, this place of what business is about to collapse. This place of greatness is about to fall apart. These people, they about to turn on each other. They about to turn on each other. That's why the Lord had told us to come out of her, and you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive none of her plagues. Right, and one of them plagues is what all hell breaking loose in this society. These people turning on each other, the famine, the collapse of the currency. Right, the civil unrest, the people shooting and killing each other. Right, that's what's coming to Babylon the Great. Right, this Luke 21:36 says, "Watch ye therefore, and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass," right? And the prophet told you about the things that will come to pass, right? A house divided, city against city, neighbor against neighbor, right? A time where food will not be able to be found. The store is going to be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, right? The doors, right? That's the things that the scriptures speak about, right? The scriptures speak about it. In your churches, they're not talking about these things, but they're talking about music. They're talking about celebrities. They're talking about BS, right? They're trying to get you to vote. They're trying to get you to be part of a dying system, a collapsing society, right? It says here in the book of Luke 21:36 again, "Watch ye therefore and pray always," right? You're begging the Lord to preserve you from the times that's coming, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man, because that's who's coming back.
Yeah, ultimately that's who we want to stand before.
At an alarming speed, right? And they don't know what
I want to say, well done.
Stuff. Right?
Well done, my humble servant.
The mind, right, is being controlled by this Lord's chariots. The Lord is sending His Son back to deliver and save His people from the hands of their enemies, right? Esau, Edom. And also the two goddamn thirds. Right, you got Esau, Edom, the two goddamn thirds, man. They're in cahoots. Like they're done Esau, Jacob, how can we say integrated into wickedness? Into wickedness. This is the book of Psalm 6 and 9. It says, "The Lord have heard my supplication, the Lord will receive my prayer." And that's only for the elect of the children of Israel. 2 parts of them shall be cut off and die. There's no hope in salvation for two-thirds of our people. Right, because 2/3 of our people, the Lord already set them up to be destroyed. They're not going to receive this knowledge. They're not going to receive this truth.
Yeah, no matter how hard you try.
For the wicked.
They're not going to listen to
all
you.
People here in Babylon the Great, they're here to be part of this society. That's why they're going to die with this fucking society. It says, "The Lord have heard my supplications. Supplication, the Lord will receive my prayer." This is the book of 1 Peter 4:1. "For as much," bear with me. Here we go. Acts 14:22, "confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith." Right, because guess what? It's about to get crazy out here. It's about to get crazy out here to the point you're going to feel like, man, the Lord didn't abandon us. Right? The Lord didn't abandon us. And then guess what? And your faith possesses your soul. And your patience possesses your soul. Right? You got to be patient. You got to suffer.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing with a lot of our people. They don't want to suffer. Right? You're going to have to fucking suffer. First off, we are still in captivity. We're supposed to be suffering. We're supposed to be being punished. Right? You don't let Esau's system make you think that you're free. Not knowing that, hey, guess what? You're still a slave until Yahweh Shai return. Until Yahweh Shai return and the elect, guess what? We're going to have to come out of this fighting, right? Fighting for our salvation, right? You're going to have to push this gospel. You're going to have to feed the sheep. You're going to have to have faith. You're going to have to believe. You're going to have to continue to call on Yahweh Shai. While these people continue to get weaker and weaker, what it says the house of David is going to get stronger, right? Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of the Most High. Yeah, so we know tribulation is coming. We know bad times is coming. We know all hell is about to break loose on earth, and that's a good thing because what we're preparing, these people ain't preparing. Right, just because you got you some canned food goods, some weapons, right? You can move into a place, off-grid place. Now that's not the real preparation. The real preparation is returning back to your power, right? It says, are Americans preparing for civil war, right? It says, while a traditional large-scale civil war is widely considered unlikely due to structural factors, right? And the system, the government, the military, right? These people ain't gonna do nothing. That's how they feel. But it says a growing number of Americans are preparing for political violence and civil unrest, right? Concerns are driven by heightened political polarization and division, right? And division. I'm reading the book of Mark 3, and let's go to Mark 3 and 24. It says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. This kingdom is totally divided against itself. Totally divided against itself. You got a man in power right now. What he's passing legislations that's ready to destroy this kingdom. Right? Who's working those fields that the migrants used to work? Who's working those jobs the migrants used to work? Right? All money is being spent into what militarization of what Babylon the Great. Right? This place is being destabilized. Right? The jobs are vanishing. Right? Opportunity is vanishing. The churches are dying. Right? Businesses are dying. And guess what? People are fucking fleeing because they know something bad is coming. They know something bad is coming. It says, if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand. But have an end. And
we know Satan's another term for Esau, by the way.
Right, Satan's society is about to collapse to what a civil unrest, while traditional large-scale civil war is widely considered unlikely due to structural factors. A growing number of Americans are preparing for political violence and civil unrest. Concerns are driven by heightened political polarization and division, and while some experts fear could lead to more frequent and sporadic acts of domestic violence rather than a conventional armed conflict. Right, guess what we've been having that. You see the Edomites. Esau been going crazy, man, shooting up places, blowing up places. Right, there's been a lot of violent Edomite acts against other Edomites. Right, this can include a rise in political violence. Right, then they blow up the judge's house.
Out on the animals.
They kill 2 politicians and they shoot at the president. Right, it says, but not a large-scale organized battle between armies. And guess what? They don't know what the fuck they talking about. Esau is sending, the president is sending armies to these cities right now.
There is a severe judgment coming to USA. Tem severo julgamento vindo. There is a severe judgment coming to USA. Tem severo julgamento vindo aos Estados Unidos.
The United States is about to break, and nobody is willing to talk about it. If we as a country don't make a change here, we are cooked. The media doesn't give it the attention it deserves. Politicians won't say it out loud, but our country, it's drowning.
Yep. Your government is fucked. This government ain't for you. They're not protecting and serving. Well, they're serving the 1%. Yep, ISIS. One group should stand up and fight against another. City against city and kingdom against kingdom. It's already here.
Well, it is only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse because these people understand the times that they're living in, right? They don't understand the situation that they're facing.
They just don't get it.
We're in the end of Esau's society, and Esau knows it's the end of the society. Revelation 12:12 said, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them.
And they can't teach that, but we can.
Just come down unto you, having what great wrath, because he knows that it's time. He knows that he has but a short time, right? Time is short. Time is short. You know, you got to implement the RFID chip. You got to get this World War III going. You got to lock down the system, because in his mind, he thinks his system and his world is going to continue. I know the Lord's about to destroy everything that he done built. Shalom.
Yep, and there's more. This is from the brother Yehowadah. Our reward will be in heaven, which will be here on earth. See, that's another thing that most don't understand, but we teach it correctly, because they won't teach that in the so-called churches, right? But we're the real church. We're the ones giving you the 100% truth. You see, in the kingdom, which is heaven, by the way, new heaven, new earth, which is going to be here on earth, as it is, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. See, like everything else, though, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and, well, that's just it. We're going to have powers unlike any before. We're going to be in rulership, see? Joint heirs with Yahweh Shai ruling. A righteous kingdom. That's what's coming. Because we're tired of this wicked society, and that's what we're looking forward to, as this brother brings into.
Hey, shalom, shalom. All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and glory to my power, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wahah, honors be to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and the elect elders that's pushing this word with all truth and sincerity. All right, here, 2026, another step closer to the kingdom of heaven, which we pray and hope is always the Most High Yahweh, by Yahweh Shai, bring all these prophets to pass, the time that we're living in. All right, especially these times. And as you brothers and your sisters see the title of this lesson, which reads spiritual riches. All right, that's what each and every last one of us brothers and sisters should be laying up ourselves in treasures in heaven. And I was just meditating on how, our people, they so quick to try to get rich in Babylon the Great. They try to heap up themselves this amount of money, they're laboring to be rich in this world. But, man, all that's about to come to naught, man. All that's about to come to naught. What about laying riches, spiritual riches in heaven? Jake don't want to, do that for themselves. Lay up spiritual riches in heaven. But they're quick to lay up themselves riches, earthly riches, which is about to come to naught, which is about to come to naught very soon. All right, because we're in a time where this MOTB is about to be mandated.
Yep.
Okay, so the money that you people are heaping up to yourselves, right? You people got money in the banks, your 401ks, all this is about to come to naught, man. So what about you Israelites laying up riches in heaven? Like the scripture says, lay up yourselves treasures in heaven. Right? That's what Israel are supposed to be doing, man, laying up themselves riches in heaven. Okay? Not laying up yourself earthly riches, because this place is about to pass away. Right? Like the scripture says, the fashion of this world is about to pass away with a great noise. What's the fashion? Everything that's in Babylon. Right? The fashion of this place, which is money, jobs, houses, cars, clothes. And that's part of the fashion, which is about to pass away very soon. So you're supposed to lay up yourselves treasures in heaven, eternal life, right? Spiritual riches that will not pass away. But we're about to soon collect, all the riches that we've been stored in heaven, right? In this truth, us serving Yahweh Shai to our best abilities. And the Lord's about to grant our petition. He's about to give us everything that we want and some, man. But Jake, they got a short mindset, where they lay themselves charges of this world, riches of this world. But it's all about to come to naught, man. Just watch. Hey, shalom to my brothers too as well. Shalom to my brother Yuanadon, shalom to the big bro area Yasharala. Hey, how shot Rakatah, hey, Rakatah to your households, and like yum. But very soon, man, we're gonna see the crash of this society. We're gonna see all these people who got 401ks that they're gonna go under. These people that got millions of dollars in bank accounts, thousands of dollars in their bank accounts, hey, all that's gonna come to naught, man. So what you people gonna be left with? What you people gonna be left with? See, now is the time to be building yourselves up spiritual treasures, spiritual riches. But thieves, right? No moth, no rust can corrupt. All right? And guess what? The Lord is going to give us everything we want. You see? Because once this place crash and burn, hey, these things that you Jakes are accustomed to in this world, and it's all going to be to naught. That's all going to be a thing of the past, man. See, we're looking for new things to come. We're looking for a new heaven and a new earth. Where righteousness is going to be allowed, rest is going to be allowed, righteousness is going to flourish the earth, rest is going to be allowed. These are things we're laying up ourselves for, man. Not to sit on this world. Everything in this world is tangible, man. It's corrupt. It can be here today and gone tomorrow. It can be here today and gone tomorrow, man.
Yeah, like PayPal, they can freeze your accounts. All that treasure you stored up,
will always be there.
And then it gets frozen. You can't use it.
And the Lord's gonna give us more than we desire, man. That's what our mindset is looking for. Things that's gonna be eternal, not things that's gonna be destroyed. Because you people laying up yourselves all this money. Like what the scripture says, man. The scripture says, money surely grow themselves wings and fly away. Roughly paraphrasing, grow themselves wings and fly away. Like I said, you have it one day, the next day it's gone. And we're gonna see a lot of people fall victim to that. You know, we're gonna see a lot of people fall victim to that. Having money, all this money, one day and the next day, these people are gonna be totally broke, insufficient funds.
Yep.
Bank accounts, 401ks wiped out.
Yep.
And these people are gonna lose it. These people are gonna lose it, man. Right? Just as the scripture says in the book of Revelation, man seeking death for the Lord's not allowed, man. It's suicide, not buildings, all because these earthly riches, you know, which we know, money is a defense. You know, there's nothing wrong with having money, but your love cannot be all about money. As the scripture said, the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself, but your mindset is all about money, 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 money. That's what Jake is all about. You know, stacking and flipping. Put in layman's terms, stacking and flipping, man. That's what Jake is all about. But not, what about your earthly? What about your spiritual? Your spiritual bank account. What about your spiritual bank account, man? Jake don't want to consider that. They don't want to consider their spiritual bank accounts. So their spiritual bank accounts is in the negative. You know? It's in the negative, man. That's why that's what Jake mindset is not on there. Jake mind is not steered to, seek for righteousness, seek the kingdom of heaven, right? Seek spiritual riches. But they all about the corner mindset. They all about being corner. What they can show off, what they can have, what they can touch, what they can smell, what they can possess. That's what all Jake is about. But hey, we walk by faith, man. You gotta walk by faith. Lay up yourself treasures in heaven by faith, man. Calling into the spirit, reaping into the spirit, man. But Jake failed to realize that. That's why a lot of you niggas not gonna make it, man. A lot of you Israelites not gonna make it in the kingdom to come, because you all about tangible things, right? You walk by sight, but you can have. You got that what I want it now spirit. I want to show off spirit. Hey, we ain't in the time for that, man. Hey, we in the time for the Lord about to bring nothing but death and destruction to this place. Hey, yeah, the Lord bless us with certain things. Give all credit and praise due to you. How about Shema Shah? But our mindset is not in this place no more, man. As we've been called into the glorious gospel. And we're departing from this world, man. Each and every day, we're departing from this world spiritually. But soon we're going to rock this out, Lord willing. The Lord is going to deliver us physically out of this place, man. See, everything that you people can see with the eye is all going to be a desolate wilderness. It says what? It's certain that you brought nothing to this world that you can leave. You can leave without nothing. You can't take nothing with you, man. But you can take your faith. Hold fast to thy half, and no man take thy crown, your faith. You can't take that with you. And that's what the believers are going to take with them, man. Well, they got to be put to death, And the believers are going to stay strong in the faith. They're going to continue to believe no matter what. You see? And that's what our people fail to realize, fail to do. Apply and soak unto the spirit, reap unto the spirit. But they want to reap unto the flesh. And that's going to cause a lot of people to get put to death out here, man. Yeah, I was just meditating on that. Man. Hey, continue to lay up yourself spiritual treasures, brothers and sisters, man. As soon as the Lord's going to cast us out. He's going to cast us out, man. We're going to hit big. We're going to hit the lottery. The elect's going to hit the spiritual lottery. So hey, we got beautiful things coming. So I pray and hope that you brothers and sisters have beautiful spirits. And these times, man, especially these times, man, hey, we at the end. We at the end, baby. All praise to you, how about Shema Shah? All love you like how about Shema Shah? All right. Thanks for that, brothers and sisters. I pray that the message not only that find the comfort and resort to you brothers, well as if you sisters that are listening and learning, to know the spiritual walk. Hey, Jay got to get it. I'm on my third days, back to back. I don't rock this out. I'm going to hit the highways and hedges tomorrow, Lord willing. Right? And, I'm going to sign out. Peace and blessings to you brothers and sisters. Shalom. And bye.
And so, like everything else, though, we're here, and the society's collapsing. What you probably don't know, though, is that it's not just happening to Babylon. On the eastern side, Russia is running low on because Ukraine has been destroying all their oil facilities, been bombing them. So even Russia's running short on fuel. Russia buying gasoline from India to tackle shortages. See, this is a worldwide event. Fuel shortages are felt worldwide. This is dealing with Russia. Russia, whose refining capacity has come under significant strain in recent months, started seaborne imports of gasoline from India. Reuters reported citing sources in an effort to mitigate fuel shortages triggered by Ukraine attacks on its energy infrastructure. This is all being done on purpose. Fuel shortages are felt across Russia's 11 time zones while rationing, long queues at filling stations, and a record gasoline price increase as a result of relentless Ukraine strikes on the country's refineries. See, they're being blown up worldwide. Over here, they just tell you that somehow by accident an oil facility caught fire. They don't know the cause of fire. Yeah, they do. So, like everything else, though, gasoline consumption in Russia is at least 110,000 tons per day in summer, when demand for fuel is high. So, like everything else, though, they're taking out the infrastructure. And it's affecting everyone worldwide. Israeli press alarmed as criticism of Israel becomes winning recipe in U.S. politics. See, like everything else, though, they've long lost their stronghold as far as pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Everybody knows these people are are murderers, you know, and that it's been nothing but genocide in Gaza. And that they're the ones that started the war. There's no getting around it. They're not defending themselves. They are starting wars. They're the start of all the wars. Of all, you know. And the U.S. has backed them all along. Primary defeats for pro-Israel Democrats have deepened fears about the state's declining popularity in the U.S. A string of primary victories by left-wing Democrat candidates has triggered alarm across Israeli media and pro-Israel circles, with commentators warning that support for Israel no longer guarantees political success. The Democratic Socialists are a left-leaning faction that often contests primary elections within the Democratic Party and has become a formidable force within the U.S. left. Israeli outlets have treated the results as more than a domestic U.S. political story. They have framed them as another sign that Israel's standing in the U.S., particularly among Democratic voters, is collapsing amid its wars against Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, as it should be. So, in other words, on the scene of things, if they think that you're supporting the Israeli state, they may not vote for you, you know, and that's not just on the Republican side, you know, so they're getting tired of the Israeli lobbyists, you know. Ukraine capital suffers night of hell in an 11-hour Russian assault that kills at least 20. So, like everything else, it's been tit for tat. As you know, Zelensky even just suffered a coup. Yeah, you may not have heard about this, but there was a coup in Ukraine to try to oust Vladimir Zelensky. From what I understand, he's still around, but and this is from the Ukrainians. This ain't even for the Russians. So they are really tired of him. You know, that coups are happening. Very similar to what happened with the one of the units that was working for Russia. Remember that? You know, and they said that he was going to go into Moscow, but he got as far as Rostov. Remember that? Well, you're having a lot of mutinies here in Ukraine as well. At least 20 people were killed and several dozen injured. An overnight multi-wave Russian missile and drone attack that overwhelmed Kiev's air defense umbrella. The sheer scale of the bombardment indicates a significant ramping up of Moscow's retaliation strategy, after Russian territory has in turn suffered many weeks, even months of significant drone attacks, particularly targeting oil refineries and energy infrastructure. So you see, Russia's fighting back, which is why we read a little bit about what's happening with Russia. And like everything else, though, over here in Babylon, the supply chain is breaking. The next 3 months change everything for his family, which is for most people's families, right? Because they rely on farming. And guess what? Everything's being deliberate because guess what? Fertilizer shortages and just the fuel costs being so high. So these people, they have a plan, right? A storage plan, so they're storing up themselves all the stuff which can be taken away at any time. Now they'll fight for it with their guns blazing, right? But like everything else, so anybody can rob you because these people were thieves anyways. But you know, this is just it though. It's what do you call that? Is a P word, preppers. You know, so you know, preppers are finding themselves in array as well, as this guy goes into.
Welcome back to the compound, everybody. We've got a little bit of a problem, and I'm behind the curve here because AutoZone and multiple other outlets just said that they were running out of motor oil. This means for our vehicles, for our tractors, we really need to top up right now. We're also putting together some tools that we need to build out the inside of my brother's house. He's building a house nearby because, let me tell you, the family compound is really where it's going to be at in the next couple of months. I don't think that a lot of people are going to understand how bad this situation really is until they start to see shortages. Now, they're already expecting a 35% increase in the price and a 30% decrease in the availability of oil. I think we're going to get a lot worse. Right here, we are going to start putting in some potatoes. So I had never used this tiller before. Just hooked it up to the PTO of the tractor, got into the dirt. We have some really beautiful, beautiful dirt here. So we're going to be putting in sweet potatoes because I need thousands of pounds. Why I need thousands of pounds is in part because I right now am running off of the care system that has been developed by my family, which resolves around procrastination.
And all that's going to come to naught as the brother was going into,
whether you've got the skills or the previous experience or not. And I pretty much need these potatoes to grow by themselves.
But
I needed a
thinks himself to be in good case
without irrigation in the current months that we are in, and we're going to go to the store today, get what we need. In 2 days, we're picking up the sweet potato slips, and we're getting ready. We're running into a problem. We're really behind the curve here. I only have maybe 48 hours to get these sweet potato slips into the ground. My brother went and picked them up. He had to make what should have been a 2-hour trip. It actually turned into a 6-hour trip just because of traffic. And it seems like when you're trying to get everything going, there's just something that's going to kind of hinder your way a little bit. There's no fruit without sacrifice. While we were tilling up, we did get the oil, which is great because now the tractor and the trucks, they have the oil, even as all these corporations say that we're really in for a pinch. And in the next 6 months, we're going to have a big problem. While we were putting this hoe into the ground, you can see that it completely bent it. So we got kind of screwed in that position. And that means we have to find a local hydraulic press that's big enough to bend it back into position. We had trees, literal trees, underneath the ground here. Yes, they were about 6 inches down, but that wasn't going to stop our roots for our sweet potatoes from having a problem finding their rooting. So we had to have one of our good friends come out, and he has a large excavator. He came out and really tore this land apart where we're putting it here. Now remember, this is our interim garden. Our large garden is over there behind me, where we are going to create a terraced garden, terraced, like they have in Nepal, in other South American countries, where you actually step down terraces across the mountain. This allows natural water to flow over your plants. But right here, we really have no time left. I don't think that we have. If I could have done this 6 months ago, I would have. I don't think we have 6 months left, so I'm kind of working every single day to try to get this done. He took out literal boulders from where we were planting that were deep underneath the ground, because remember, we're in South Appalachia, so you have literal boulders in the ground. But he said, the ground's just right. He said these sweet potatoes are going to be the best that you and your family have ever had, and that's what we're hoping for. So right now we're on our way to get this hoe fixed and get it straightened out. Then we've got to get the rower back on the tractor, and then we've got to get back out there, and today we've got to get these in the ground. We're out here burning the midnight oil. We spent the time into the dark. Now, I guess there is a little bit of information on
so
when you plant at night, whether you plant under a full moon, you plant under a quarter moon.
Isn't this a reversal, right?
Now, and we just have to get them into the ground. So we have 5 rows that reach a little bit over 100 feet. We're doing drip irrigation because our well.
Now he has to do the slave work.
We're just trying to work tonight to get as much as we can. We have the irrigation complete. Next step's getting the plants in the ground. Wouldn't you know, we have a flash flood warning in the area. We literally have no time left to get these in the ground. These are Alabama, Georgia sweet potatoes. Our hope for this yield right now is anywhere between 1,500 and 2,500 pounds. For a family of 10, which is what me and my brother's family is combined, we're looking at enough potatoes to fill us at least 1 full meal per day. Now we've got to get thinking about preservation because we have only, I guess, about 3.5 months until we have to get these up out of the ground. And this is a little bit experimental, like yours is going to be, because this is the first time that we've planted here. So we're just kind of waiting to see it. Ideally, and all the local farmers, and that's really why it's important for you to connect with locals, they all say that you don't have to fertilize this ground for this crop. So that's really our hope there, is that we don't have to do any sort of additives to it.
At least he's being smart by not worrying too much about the fertilizer and trying to find things that'll grow without it. And you see, at least he's thinking that way. A lot of people don't think that way, and they're going to find themselves a surprise when it all runs out. And there is a famine coming. You see, it's all being engineered, but nonetheless, though, you know, you can see that even prepping will do you no good. If the Most High is not with you, that ain't gonna do you any good, you know. And as Negan put it once, you're just getting everything prepared for the Israelites, you know. And that's just what Esau's doing. He's getting everything prepared for the Israelites, because the Israelites are going to take the kingdom. At the end of the day, Yahushua will take the kingdom. And of course, like everything else, though, the so-called peace talks, right? Chubb sees progress as U.S. and Iran hold Qatar talks. Chubb said indirect talks with Iran and Doha were making progress. The last time I checked, Iran wasn't even showing up there. Offering a tentative sign that diplomacy was holding despite recent exchanges of fire. So this was published today. U.S. President Trump said on Wednesday that indirect talks with Iran and Qatar were making progress, offering a tentative sign that diplomacy was holding after recent exchanges of fire threatened efforts to end the war. The war ain't over. It ain't over till King Bibi says it is. Actually, it ain't over until the Most High says it is, and that's who's the one is driving, right? The Memorandum of Understanding mediated by Qatar and Pakistan and sealed the summit last month in Lucerne included a 60-day ceasefire, the reopening of the blockaded strait, and a timetable for a final deal on the war and Iran's nuclear program. You know, so like everything else, so that's all in talks. At the same time, though, Chris Green's reporting on the same thing, that a ground invasion with Iran is imminent. You know, because Kim Iverson first brought that. You know, actually, there's another guy who did, but Kim Iverson put the video out on that. And now he's getting in on it. So this is interesting, though, is they're just a little bit worried, and everything seems to be in line with that whole selective service automatic draft. So we'll get into this a bit. So, major escalation happening right now, as he gets into, and then of course Chris Green reporting on the same thing, you know, that Kim Iverson brought up yesterday, you know, which is from another guy who's an expert on this, you know, that's talking about the fact that they're still planning a ground invasion somewhere in the winter. You know, most likely between November and December. You know, probably going to launch it just a little bit earlier, you know, when the government's shut down, everybody's paying attention to that, they're just going to send everybody in, you know. It's probably going to be secretive at first, but then everybody's going to know.
Oh boy, it looks like we might return to all-out war.
There it is.
Once again, as of course we told you that probably was going to be happening here, as even J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is talking about how the purpose of the MOU is to refill our munitions and to refill the global oil supply. As of course, yeah, that's exactly what a lot of people saw this as right now, there's some peculiar situations happening in the Strait of Hormuz that highlight more economic instability here. But don't worry, Bibi is having a historic breakthrough in Lebanon, as Tucker Carlson had some very interesting critiques of Donald Trump here, specifically when it comes to Lebanon, as well as MTG, that recently was on the Piers Morgan show and kind of unleashed a very direct criticism here of this entire saga that is absolutely unfortunate. We're going to get into all the latest news, all the latest kind of criticisms back and forth.
He's got a commercial. Let's get past the commercial.
Hold on there. There's still the question of Bibi, who has been very active and engaged in conflict in Lebanon when Trump told him not to be. And I was like, maybe it's a good cop, bad cop. And I think that's essentially what's going on here, as perpetual war is something that the military-industrial complex, the deep state, has always wanted to achieve and have. As now there are conversations, allegedly, with Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane that talk about the reality of returning to this full-scale conflict that we saw with AI being implemented here just a few weeks ago. As it looks like they're currently opting for diplomacy. Why? They have to, as we've told you, rebuild the stockpiles of missiles, as even Zelensky's talking about the massive amounts of missiles that were sent from the United States into Iran here. As they're now talking, if diplomacy fails again and yields a resolution, it's going to be hard because the Iranians are very stubborn. It would likely mark a return to, quote, open hostilities, writes the Wall Street Journal. Myron Gaines here has his criticisms here, saying the presidency is already ruined from starting this war. Legacy will be tarnished for restarting it, as a lot of people believe that this type of restart of war is absolutely unnecessary. Unless you're, of course, Bibi. Now, Donald Trump's vice president, who has been selling the MOU, who has been selling the ceasefire and the peace deal, that hasn't worked, now is openly talking about the kind of strategy here that we told you was ongoing.
So I think what the president has told us to do is use this MOU to sort of refill the world's oil economy, to refill some stocks, and then to see where the hand is.
Seems like you guys are just kind of like trying to offset a little bit of the damage and prepare to go again. Michael Tracy says, passionate, non-interventionist J.D. Vance admits the purpose of the Iran MOU Trump had him negotiate was to refill U.S. munition stockpiles while temporarily refilling the global oil supply. And then regroup for phase 3 of the military campaign, which again probably will be, from everything I'm getting, in a few weeks from now. All right, September is the time frame that I'm kind of looking at here.
Yeah,
J.D. Vance kind of plays an interesting role here.
September, October,
some people see him as a non-interventionist, even though he's selling this war, right? So he's selling this war. There's news reports coming out of him being either too afraid to criticize this war, being for this war, or being against this war? Who do you really believe? Well, if you look at his statements, a lot of his statements do represent him selling the war to the American public, talking about how Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Right? Now, his conversation was also highlighted in this clip that talks about the possibility of restarting this conflict. Now, some people are saying they're just negotiating from strength. Well, in reality here, the American people are sick of this. They don't want this. They see the high gas prices. They're going back up again. They're not as high as when Biden helped and foment that kind of situation in Ukraine, but predominantly Putin did that. But it's still getting bad out there.
If the Iranians try to rebuild the nuclear program, the president's got options, again, because of you. If the Iranians try to threaten their neighbors or fund terrorism, we've got options, again.
You're the only terrorist.
But what we must never do is drop bombs just for the sake of dropping bombs. And that is what the president will never ask you to do. He'll ask you to go to war, yes, but when he asks you to go to war, he'll tell you exactly what you're going for,
and
I think that is what you should expect out of your political leadership.
It usually should be if someone's a threat, right? And it's pretty clear a lot of people in America don't see Iran as a threat. That argument hasn't been made successfully here. Now, what's happening in the region, that's a little bit more complicated. Before playing the clips of MTG and Tucker Carlson and their kind of criticisms of this, we just really quickly wanted to tell you about the sponsor of today's videos. Working with us, they're a good company. Iranians are saying there's no talks, as Trump now is praising constructive U.S.-Iran talks in Qatar.
Yep.
Now, CNN is reporting that Qatari leaders met with senior U.S. and Iranian officials in an effort to advance talks, as they're holding indirect, low-level technical talks through mediators, a diplomatic source says. Now, obviously, we are at a major impasse. We had an MOU, we have ceasefire that was broken, and it looks like that will continue to be broken, as well as the trade routes, as now Iran is releasing this footage of a foreign cargo ship being stuck in the Strait of Hormuz after, quote, attempting to transit using a U.S.-suggested route, allegedly. This morning, calling it an incident even worse than sinking. As this video footage hasn't been independently verified, we have to be careful because sometimes there's a lot of deep fakes out there, especially from the Iranian media. Now, has trade been stalled? Yeah. Has that made a big impact on the economy? Yeah. But don't worry, Bibi talks about a historic breakthrough in Lebanon that Trump told him not to do. Now, I don't know why Trump does this. This whole, I don't know if, it's pretty clear it's like bad cop, good cop. Trump was like,
or bad cop, bad
Bibi,
cop.
stop. And then Bibi's like, I'll do it anyway. Why would you make yourself look like that, Trump? I don't get it. Like, I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me unless you're understanding that this is like WWE and there's a psychological operation.
Yep, WWE.
Psychological operation leading to the latest strikes that happened this year, where it looked like Bibi and Trump were arguing. Trump went to Saudi Arabia, talked about the struggles of the people of Gaza, and everyone was like, wow, there's a big rift, and there's all these like anonymous sources, big rift between Bibi and Trump. But that was used as a psychological operation in order to lull in the Iranians into a false feeling of safety, and that there was division between Bibi and Trump, and then boom, they used that as a way to sneak attack and then assassinate a lot of their scientists and top government officials and military officials in the middle of the night with secret drone attacks and then missile attacks. And then they restarted this entire whole huge conflict, bombing the Iranian leadership that has been kind of decentralized. Now, with a decentralized Iranian leadership, negotiations are going to be a little bit more difficult. As of course, you have the IRGC, you have the old regime, you have the parliament, and you have previous members of the government. It's like, who's really in charge here? Well, there seems to be a lot of chaos, but it seems that overall message from the Iranians is stop the fighting in Lebanon. And Bibi's like, I'm getting good success in Lebanon. As now U.S. allies oil exports hit record highs, thanks to oil exit. As now the larger question here kind of remains about the global economy, as Trump has been touting the stock market and dropping oil prices. As now there is a little bit of progress being made here, as the Iranians admit that some of their frozen assets were used to buy U.S. farm products, agriculture products and contracts that were bought through American companies, sourced through Iranian foreign funds. Now, whether that will actually make it to them, who knows? This is what the President of the United States had to say.
As far as things are going, the denuclearization of Iran is moving along well.
Yeah, everything's going great.
Meetings, and we'll see. We hit them very hard for 3 nights, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
This was the last weekend, right? There was an Iranian drone that struck a Singaporean trading ship, and then the United States bombed them for 3 days. The Iranians allegedly attacked back, going after the U.S. command in Bahrain. We still don't know the initial kind of impact and results of those alleged Iranian strikes against the United States in that region. But the United States is trying to allocate significant amounts of funds to rebuild the infrastructure that it looks like the Iranians had some success in bombing in the Middle East. As now, as we reported to you a couple days ago, huge convoy from America going over to the Middle East once again, highlighting what a lot of people believe to be further escalations here.
But we're getting along very well, so we're both there.
I don't know if we're getting along very well when there's like bombings happening and attacks happening and Iran saying we're not even going to talk.
Yeah, exactly. So you know where the shit show's going, right? But wait, there's more, right? Chris Green's reporting on this surprise ground invasion, which will come in the midst. I believe that they'll just, bomb them like they were before, and then they're going to try to secretly sneak in the troops to do a ground invasion after maybe a couple months of bombing again, another 60-day war leading up to the ground invasion. I think that's probably the most likely scenario, like you said, September. A September attack, and then just going all the way into November, right? November, December, sending in the ground troops. I think that's what their plan is, and that's what they're going with.
Christ is King. World War
okay,
III
he's calling
World War
JC.
III weekend.
Salakia.
It is World War III. As I revealed top secret information yesterday, people always say I'm crazy, then I get it right. It's now going mainstream that yes,
too.
Donald Trump and the neocons are prepping a massive ground invasion of Iran.
There it is.
A massive attack, a massive ground invasion with U.S. troops, not just autonomous weapons in the sky, through Anduril, Palantir, and of course the new IPO'd SpaceX company, which is a magnificent war machine of death. A magnificent war machine of death is what SpaceX is. And World War III is here. The quarter centennial of July 4th will be the marker and the blame game of the totalitarian world elite. The same people that locked you in your house in 2020 and stole all your money in 2008 and 2009. Yes, I am your general here at islandproject.com. Secede now at islandproject.com. Peacefully secede.
He was a businessman
exit
before.
The system and exit the banks and secede from crumbling infrastructure in the United States of America. I'm going to explain, like, and share what Donald Trump has planned along with the rest of the neocons after market close on Thursday, because the U.S. stock market will not be open on Friday. Donald Trump plans. Let me see if my pool guy's here. Clean up my chairs in the pool. Hold on 1 second. Donald Trump plans after market close. After market close. He always waits until after market close. That way, as much manipulation and fraud of the U.S. stock market can be insider traded ahead of the American people. After market close on Thursday, Donald Trump and the rest of the neocons will commence airstrikes on Iran. This is going to rattle international markets. It's going to rattle oil. Now, what I'm expecting is a massive false flag. The elites need a massive false flag on the homeland, pray against it in order to conjure up the spirit of war among the American people. Again, another dirty, traitorous, unforgivable, you promised you wouldn't do it, sending us to war again in another foreign war is very, very unpopular. So these scumbags, of course, in Washington, D.C., must conjure up a false flag in order to bring you and your kids into the front lines. So that's going to happen. Now, I want you to understand that Donald Trump, the only reason he's queefed, and Donald Trump has not replaced the mullahs in Iran, is for a very, very specific reason. Donald Trump's afraid. Donald Trump knows what I know. Donald Trump knows if he attempts to completely overthrow the Iranian government, that means replace the mullahs and replace the Ayatollah, Vladimir Putin's going to nuke the shit out of the United States, and China's going to drop little Chinese men in every American city and town. So I want you to understand this as this ramps up. As Donald Trump fraudulently enters a new war without congressional approval, as he breaks every promise of his presidency and delivers a golden defecation on the heads of the American people. I want you to understand two things. False flag is imminent. World war and Russia and China will be entering the mix. This means great and great financial collapse and chaos. Absolute chaos in the United States. Fake, rigged, manipulated, insider traded, scumbag, criminal stock market, criminal racketeering pricks, and pieces of you-know-what. All of this has been proven. All of this is a fact. In fact, there was a hearing into the insider trading prior to 2020 by U.S. officials, and it was actually dropped by the Trump administration. Every day, we hear about Donald Trump buying companies and then signing a contract with them as a part of the U.S. government. So there's racketeering, broken promises, world war, insider trading, a giant golden shower defecating turd on the American people's foreheads. So I'm going to tell you what you do. You secede. That's what you do. You secede now.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of people are seceding in their own way. Of course, we know that the best way to secede is obviously to get right with Yahweh Shai, right? Come out of her, my people, because you're going to be caught in it. No matter what, World War III is imminent. The MOTB is imminent. So yeah, you do have to secede. See, we're going to have to go without everything. We have to totally trust in Yahweh Shai. But he did promise that we would be kept from that hour of temptation, which is to get the MOTB. That's what the hour of temptation is all about. But we would be kept from that, meaning that we wouldn't be tempted to go and get that, because guess what? We're going to eat. We're going to eat. We're going to have water. Okay? The Most High had promised that. Some of us will be martyrs during this time period. But we will not have to take the MOTB. We will not be compelled to take it. We won't feel the compelling to take it like others will. Yeah, we'll feel a lot of shit, but guess what? We have a promise from Yahweh Shai himself that I will keep thee from the hour of temptation if you just hold that fast. That it means teaching this word diligently as we do, and not straying from this truth. Not teaching other doctrines of devils, but rather teaching the 100% truth. We have a guarantee that we would be kept from that hour of temptation, because it's coming. It's coming. Jacob's trouble's around the corner. Civil unrest, everything is about to break. It's all going to break very soon, but we're storing up our treasures in heaven. Most of all, to be saved from the said perils. Agashi warns of immediate, powerful response to threats against the Iranian nation. Like they don't know about the surprise attack plan. They never trusted Babylon, as they shouldn't, and they're not about to now. Iran's foreign minister warned that any threat against Iran's leadership or people would trigger an immediate and powerful response, which is going to be even greater than that before. Quds has threatened the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Saeed Mojtaba Khamenei, on Monday, saying he was marked for death. Any threat against our people and leadership will receive an immediate and powerful response, the foreign minister said. He said, under the memorandum of understanding signed on the 18th of June, U.S. President Trump has committed to the U.S. muzzling its pets in Tel Aviv. If they ignore their master, Iran will school them. In other words, the real teachers is Iran, because Iran is wiping them out. In other words, they are totally decimating the Israeli influence and taking, control of the region, because none of the other countries over there will stand up to them. Iran's the main one. Turkey wants to, and Turkey is about to be under threat too, because there's more threats against Turkey, as you know. Turkey is another one. See, they're all going to eventually have an alliance with Russia to go in. And as Chris Green put it, they will nuke the shit out of America, and of course out of the Israelis as well. It's all a plan of the Most High. Trump considers return to full-scale war with Iran, but chooses to hold off for now. That's what they're telling everyone. That was on the 1st. But you see, he may be planning strikes this weekend after the market, right? He always does shit like that. So he's, again, these tit-for-tat strikes, Reports said that folks focused on whether the U.S. should restart the full-scale war and abandon negotiations, and that Trump hasn't made a final decision. He told aides that he believed another round of full-scale talks would derail the negotiations and hurt the chances of dismantling Iran's nuclear program. Though Tehran has maintained it won't give up its civilian nuclear program, basically saying that, we're just going to go war over the pretense, pretty much. But like everything else, though, this is also going on, right? Continued violations of the so-called ceasefire, which includes Lebanon. Well, more bigger weapons are being used against Beirut and against Lebanon by the Israelis, and maybe as big as what we saw in Yemen, as this video goes into.
Hey everybody, Josh here, it's World Alternative Media here, and the war in Lebanon continues, and we have some horrific videos coming out. We're talking about Hiroshima-style bombings. Yes, you did not hear that wrong. Absolutely crazy, as Netanyahu says that he will not be leaving southern Lebanon after a deal was just signed to take over a bunch of Lebanon from the country to Israel. This so-called peace deal apparently involves massive bombing campaigns, and again, the elimination of entire towns in Lebanon. We're seeing what we saw in Gaza happening in Lebanon right now. There is just not enough talk about this right now. And I want to delve into what some of this means, as well as what's happening with Iran. There's always new news. But before we get into that, I urge people to check those links below, heavensharvest.com. I'm going to do separate So I'm so sick of having to talk about this stuff, but it's so important, and it's so off the rails right now. Listen to what Netanyahu said today. Let me get this unmuted here, and let me get this full screen.
Lebanon recognizes Israel. Israel recognizes Lebanon. And we are telling both Iran and Hezbollah, leave. You have no place here. There are two sovereign states that want to make peace with one another and restore security and prosperity to the residents of northern Israel and to the people of Lebanon. You need to leave. That is a slap in the face, a punch to the Iranian axis, and it will not necessarily pass without a response. We remain firm in our position. We will not leave southern Lebanon until the threat has been eliminated. And as long as Hezbollah remains here, armed and threatening us, we will remain here.
So that's from I-24, that's Netanyahu. And as Sue Peters wrote on X, Netanyahu says, we will not leave southern Lebanon. If you can't tell by now that this is simply a land grab, then you're irredeemable. And I totally agree. And by the way, you know, when he talks about Hezbollah, Hezbollah is a group, a militant group that maybe you don't agree with everything they do, but I want to point out that they stem from the Israeli government restricting the country from having any form of self-defense. So militias formed. Shocking, right? Who would have thought something like that would happen, that people might want to defend themselves? So Hezbollah, look, this is separate from a lot of the other issues in the region. Like Hamas was armed and funded by Israel in the first place. Hezbollah was armed and funded to a great degree by the Iranian government. And it's part of the Iranian deal, by the way, which of course they've gone back on. In the past, Israel had a deal with Lebanon to not bomb them, a ceasefire deal, and Israel claimed they weren't breaking the ceasefire by bombing them, continuing to bomb them and dropping white phosphorus. They've been shelling Beirut lately. It makes you really wonder about that massive explosion that happened in Beirut in 2020 and who might have actually been responsible for that. And also, who bombed Beirut back in the 80s? I think we know. Look, there is so much to this, but I do want to point out that, you know, they want full-on, if they want Muslims in the region, they want it to be Wahhabi. They want to get rid of anyone that disagrees with Israel, and the Wahhabis, who are the most extreme, tend to be the most supportive of Israel, weirdly enough. We have HTS, formerly Al-Nusra Front, now taking over Syria, after, again, part of the seven-country plan to take over the Middle East, and for the Greater Israel Project. Smotrich talked about it months before, January 2025, when Assad was thrown from power, and also CIA documents talk about exactly how it happened back in the 1980s, bringing arms to bear in Syria, which is a paper I went into back in 2018, talking about how all of this would happen. But, you know, HTS, formerly Al-Nusra Front, and Al-Qaeda, and all these groups that were armed and funded by Israel in the first place, ISIS, all these groups, take over these countries, and they're bombing churches, they're killing Christians, they're killing Shiites, they are going after Alawites. It's absolutely insane. And then they say, oh, look, the region is so extreme, we have all these Wahhabis that for some reason never attack us. Therefore, if we don't do something, we're the only common sense in the Middle East. So therefore, you know, again, this pretext, this excuse that is, of course, based in fraud. It's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. But let's look at what Israel just carried out in Lebanon. As Alex Jones posted, Israel just carried out what experts say is one of the largest single warhead explosions in modern military history, destroying a village in South Lebanon under the rubric of demolishing tunnels. The massive blast registered on seismic monitors and was heard in Israel. We're talking about Richter scale level. Check this out. Let's go back to the beginning here. Let's go back again. Pause it. 3, 2, 1. That is insane. How many civilians were killed in this? This is to blow up tunnels. Let me just remind people that the people that are most known for tunnels is Israel. In fact, Israel has been known to build a lot of the tunnels that they then claim Hamas were hiding in. So they're dropping Hiroshima-style bombs on people. And this is self-defense now against tunnels. But I doubt they didn't build themselves. I'm sorry, but just historically speaking, I don't have evidence of this one specifically in Lebanon, but just considering how every single time in Gaza, throughout Palestine, that we heard about Israel bombing these tunnels, it turned out that they built the tunnels in the first place. And there's old news stories that go back on this a long ways. And this is an entire town that Israel just wiped off the map after signing a peace deal with Lebanon. I mean, it's absolutely sickening. And people will still justify this. The same people who always call out anyone else for pushing foreign governments' talking points and supporting foreign governments. We need to be America first, but then support Israel doing whatever the hell they want. As they're at the America 250 event with massive Israeli flags, and they're baptizing people in front of Israeli flags with the Star of Rembrandt on it, but okay, whatever. These are the same people who supported Trump saying that he was going to stop all wars, end all wars. Remember, he said, end all wars. I'm going to end the wars. And then he says, no new wars, no new wars. He said it about 1,000 times. And then when questioned on it recently, he said, I never said that. We, in the past on our show, as well as in other reports, played clips of all the time.
Exactly.
He said no new wars, but he says now he never said it. People will come up with any excuse that they can to justify this absolute insanity, which is clearly all the evidence you really need for the fact that Trump is subverted and is controlled and is, of course, blackmailed by these Israelis who, again, Israel is a master of blackmail. Epstein bragged about being working for them. I mean, he wore IDF shirts and boasted to his ex-girlfriends about being a Mossad agent. He got a plea deal over being a government agent, and on top of that, he fostered deals between the U.S. and the Israeli government for missiles. Like, one random private citizen does that, and a hedge fund manager that no one ever saw on Wall Street, who's also, weirdly, living with the former Israeli prime minister, and on top of that, joining the Trilateral Commission at the age of 29 alongside the Rockefeller Foundation without any background. Anyway, we could go into all that all day, but what? Come on. These guys are blackmailed, and they're using the blackmail to perpetuate these wars, which will not end. People keep calling me black-pilled for saying that it won't end, but they won't end.
Well, it does end, but it ends in a nuclear war, which brings about the return of Yahweh Shai at the very end. You see, the kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. You know, ushering in the kingdom of heaven, which is ruled by the Israelites. And like everything else, though, you know, we see the outcome. So when we read articles like this, it's not surprising, because the scriptures say that I will bring him into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with him there. In other words, he will get even with them there. For my people, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and divided my land. So he's going to deal with them right there. Yeah, we're just going to destroy every last fucking one of them. Esau, Edom will be destroyed in that land. The valley of Jehoshaphat. That's what the scriptures say. So, it's an indefinite end. Israeli state to keep troops in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza indefinitely. This is not surprising. It's what they've been saying before. Israeli Defense Minister Katz said on Wednesday that Israeli terrorists would remain in what he described as security zones in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza forever, with no timetable for withdrawal. Speaking at the ceremony for soldiers killed in 2006 war with Lebanon, Katz said the Israeli army will remain in the zones in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza until further notice to protect residents and communities. Yeah, protect them from any other interests, that goes against the Greater Israel Project. Because the only terrorists are the ones that they control themselves. They're the terrorists, these Israelis. Syrian terrorists uproar because it's not the Syrian Arab Army anymore. These are terrorists that were put there, so, I'm speaking correctly. Syrian terrorists, I don't even think they're from Syria. They're really, you may as well call it ISIS uproots 1,000 families as part of a new sectarian displacement campaign. The government assault against Shias and Homs resulted in major destruction of civilian homes and came just days after Ashura. So, like everything else, so this is what they're doing over there. Boy, it takes forever to load. Is it even necessary to load? It's not going to play anyways. Well, maybe it does. No. Slovakia, it ain't going to play anyways. It was a waste of time. But you see what they're doing. They're leveling everything. Ongoing campaign began on the 29th of June after authorities issued evacuation notices to the residents of Homs al-Mazar and other areas. Notices were issued under the pretext of preventing construction on state-owned land and the lack of building permits by locals, according to the Syrian Justice Archive. So basically, just like what the Israelis do. Oh, well, you better clear out because we're going to demolish everything. After all, they've destroyed just about everything anyways. But here we go. Now the finale, right? They're going to go after Turkey next. So, well, I'm going to go ahead and get some scriptures here before I close this out. So I'm going to read this in the AMP translation. Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 17. Edom will become an object of horror. And where is that? Well, it really begins in the valley of Jehoshaphat, where all the armies are being gathered to fight on behalf of the Israelis. Edom will become an object of horror. Everyone who goes by it will be astonished and shall hiss scornfully at all its plagues and disasters. So, nothing but terror is coming to Babylon, as it was in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah with their neighboring cities. In other words, just total obliviation, being totally wiped out destructively, because what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. they never were inhabited again. Same thing with Babylon. Says the Most High, Yahweh, no man will live there, nor will Son of Man dwell in it. So when Yahushua takes the kingdom and sets up rulership, Israelites are not going to be there either, you know. See, one will come like a lion from the thicket of the Jordan against the enduring habitation of Edom and its watered pastures. For an instant will make him, which is Edom, run from his land. You know, so like everything else, a lot of people are looking to get out of Babylon before this destruction comes. And we're seeing a lot of that. I will point over him, the one whom I choose, for who is like me? In other words, you know, when Yahushua takes over all the kingdoms. And who will summon me into court and prosecute me for this? Who is the earthly shepherd who can stand defiantly before me? So, like everything else, though. In other words, when Yahushua takes rulership, ain't nobody going to be able to come against him. Therefore, hear the plan of the Most High, which he has devised against Edom, and hear what he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. And the heart of that is, of course, Babylon the Great, being drawn into this war. Surely they will be dragged away, the little ones of the flock. Surely he will make their dwelling place desolate because of them. So pretty much, though, their dwelling place has been Babylon, it's been America. But it's about to become desolate. The earth has quaked at the noise of the downfall. That's that great earthquake, you know, from the destruction. There is an outcry. The sound of its noise has been heard at the Red Sea. So it's going to be so loud, the destruction coming to Esau, Edom as a whole, especially Babylon. Behold, he will mount up and fly swiftly as like an eagle and spread his wings against the city of Basra, aka Babylon. And in that day, the heart of the mighty men, warriors of Edom, will be like the heart of a woman in childbirth. You know, and that's when they see, ultimately, the huge chariot coming forward to destroy this place. Because at that point, when it destroys this place, when we are going to be seeing it up above. So, we're going to be saved scarcely as the destruction's coming. They'll see us being beamed up, and then they'll see their destruction. So that's what's coming. The kingdom will come to on earth as it is in heaven. And we pray we're part of that elect that gets to see. So, you know, got one more article here before I close this out. Then I want to say Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Wa Abba. Brakatum Jehovah elect. And so here it is. Israeli state just found Turkey's weak spot. West Jerusalem Armenian genocide recognition exposes a deeper fight for influence in D.C. The Israeli government decision to officially recognize the Armenian genocide has become one of the most symbolic and political sensitive steps in its relations with Turkey. On the surface, it may look like Israel feels the need to restore historical justice. And the original Armenians, of course, are the Syrians, who pretty much has been, they were wiped out by the Ottoman Empire years ago. You know, and there's only been a remnant of the original Syrians. That's a long story, but like everything else, though, the Israeli state is playing both sides of this, and they got a plan. For a long time, Ankara was one of the Israeli key partners in the Muslim world. Turkey was viewed by the Israeli state as an important military and political ally. However, though, they want to go after them. A strategic channel of communication with the region, and an element of balance in the Middle East. Historical issues were sacrificed for the sake of pragmatism. Israeli state was careful to avoid irritating Ankara in matters that could harm political interests. You know why? Both of them are Amalek. Erdogan and King Bibi are Amalek. Just one claims to be Muslim, claims to be Islamic, but they're really Amalekites. Both of them are Amalek. So you got Amalek against Amalek, pretty much. So, pretty much, though, the Young Turks, which is another show, which pretty much, well, you already know that the Turks are Amalek. So, you got them going into this. Israeli state itching to go to war with Turkey.
As Israel denies its genocide in Gaza, as it says it's going to keep southern Lebanon, as it's attacked Iran, as it's saying it's going to flood West Bank with 1 million new illegal settlers, they've decided in the middle of their disgusting series of genocides that as a joke and as a way to create more hostility against Turkey, they're going to recognize the Armenian genocide. Now, we're going to explain the hypocrisy of this and how they're trying to ironically use it to create more war and more genocide. For that, I hand it off to him.
Now, the reality of the Armenian genocide has never been officially recognized by Israel's Knesset, by Israel as a country. So I want to be clear, what just happened in Israel is Netanyahu's cabinet members decided to vote on recognizing the genocide, not the Knesset, and they've moved forward with this specifically to increase hostilities with Turkey. Now, Turkey still refuses to recognize the Armenian genocide. They've reacted to this. We'll get to that in just a moment. But again, this is all about building enmity with or against Turkey. So it started with Gideon Sa'ar, who is Israel's foreign minister. And so he announced this last week, and then the cabinet members vote on it, and they unanimously approve it. Now, allegedly, this is going to head to the Knesset, and they're going to vote on it to formally recognize the Armenian genocide. But after the cabinet voted on it, here's what he said. It's never too late to do the right thing. I thank the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for his support and the government ministers for their unanimous approval of the resolution I initiated for Israel's recognition of the Armenian genocide. Thus, Israel joins 32 countries that have fulfilled a moral duty by recognizing the historical truth and rejecting attempts to deny it. Well, I mean, if Gideon Sa'ar is genuine in accepting the Armenian genocide, he should study it, because what the Turks did to the Armenians is very similar to what the Israelis are doing to Palestinians right now as we speak. Starve them to death, displace them, force them to go through a death march through the Syrian desert. I mean, the atrocities are very similar, but Israel denies that they're carrying out genocide in Gaza. Now, Armenia's prime minister has weighed in on this, and I'm proud of the way he weighed in on it. Here's what he said. We believe that not entering into the issue of the weaponization of the Armenian genocide is in the interest of the Republic of Armenia. And he is right about that. Because what Israel is doing is weaponizing the slaughter of 1.5 million Armenians for their own little war purposes, their own little war aims. They are trying to build up toward a war against Turkey. And that is what this is about.
Yep.
And so they're disgusting. They just are. Okay, the Israeli government is absolutely disgusting. Yep. And I'm glad to see other fellow Americans weigh in on this similarly. Here is Serge Tankian. He is the lead singer of System of a Down, and he is a vocal critic of those who deny the Armenian genocide. But in this case, he's a vocal critic of Israel and what they're trying to do here. Let's take a look.
For many years, Israel's government used AIPAC to lobby the U.S. Congress to not recognize the Armenian genocide, to prevent Congress from recognizing the Armenian genocide due to their relationship with Turkey, their intelligence sharing with Turkey, etc. Today, the Netanyahu cabinet decided to recognize the Armenian genocide of 1915, a genocide that led to Hitler thinking that he could do what he could do to the Jews in the 1930s and 40s. The fact that this government is already committing genocide in Gaza and Lebanon, decided to recognize the genocide of my grandparents, is the worst thing that they could have done to Armenians by using our history, our genocide, our pain to their political advantage.
That's right, F you. And, you know, I mean, would anyone be surprised by Israel doing this, by weaponizing the pain and suffering of others for their own, you know, war aims? And if you don't know what I'm talking about here, we have been covering all the various statements made by all these various Israeli politicians and public figures. They're itching to go to war with, or against Turkey and Egypt, by the way. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's take a quick look at this compilation. I'll bring you in, Cenk.
A new Turkish threat is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in Syria, are seeking influence elsewhere and everywhere throughout the region. And from here, I warn, Turkey is the new Iran.
15 years from now, Israel will have a war with Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood will eventually take over Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the Sunni jihad, now after we weaken the Shia jihad, will be a threat to the world. Turkey is now taking over.
I'm not so sure that we will have as easy a time with the Turks as we've had with the Iranians. I've been following Turkish military doctrine, and the storm is coming in the Middle East. The storm is coming. We have to be prepared for the next war, which will be probably against Turkey and Egypt.
Turkey channels first money to what Israel perceives, what Israel sees as nothing short of terror cells in the West Bank. Turkey is hosting all these people, allowing them to act freely, send money to the West Bank, create terror cells in the West Bank. It is clearly a worrying issue, and Turkey has been able to encircle Israel with its proxies in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Egypt.
We need to ensure that Erdogan doesn't create a new alliance of radical Islam Sunni version, meaning an axis between himself, Julani, Qatar, and Hamas.
So this is all about evoking Turkish officials. And I want to be clear about one other thing. Israel provided the arms, the weapons to ethnically cleanse Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, which Armenians call Artsakh. That's what they did. And they have the effing audacity to pretend like they're the good guys and they're looking out for the Armenians. Israel accounted for 69% of Azerbaijan's arms imports between 2016 and 2020. And their Israeli drones, LoRa missiles, cluster munitions, they were all used in 2023 to ethnically cleanse Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, 120,000 of them.
When we launched Shop TYT,
and they're right about that. Shalom.